All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about something that is absolutely everywhere, artificial intelligence. So chances are you're already playing around with tools like ChatGPT, but do we really get what's happening behind the curtain? We're going to dive in, because once you understand the basics, you can unlock their real power.
And look, it's easy to see why you might think so, right? You see these tools doing just incredible stuff, and all the hype and the buzzwords start flying around. It makes it feel like we're dealing with some kind of conscious thinking machine. But is that what's actually going on?
I love this quote because it just cuts right through all the noise. The idea here is simple. Most AI today is just really good at one specific task. So we're not talking about some kind of super brain here. We're talking about incredibly sharp, specialized tools. They're powerful, for sure, but also very focused.
All right, so let's really break this down. We're going to strip away all that sci-fi hype and just look at what artificial intelligence actually is. Let's get real about the tech.
So a really good way to think about AI is like this giant umbrella. And under that umbrella, you've got all these different systems and technologies. But the absolute key thing to remember is that none of this stuff is thinking like you and I do. It doesn't have feelings or consciousness. It's not having sudden moments of inspiration. At its very core, AI is just an incredible pattern-matching machine.
Okay, so if it's not actually thinking, then how in the world does it get so smart? How does it work? Well, the secret sauce isn't really magic at all. It's a process, and it all boils down to something called a neural network, and more importantly, how we train it.
So deep down, at the very heart of pretty much every AI tool you're using today, you'll find what's called a neural network. And that analogy of layered filters, it's perfect. Imagine you pour a bunch of raw data in the top. The first layer of the filter catches some basic patterns. It passes that to the next layer, which finds more refined patterns, and so on, down the line, until you get a clear, coherent result at the end.
And this is how those filters get so good. The process itself is kind of simple, but the scale is just staggering. First, developers feed the network a mind-boggling amount of data. I mean, think huge chunks of the internet. Then the network takes a guess. If it gets it wrong, it gets a tiny little nudge, a small correction. Now, do that millions or, heck, even billions of times, and that network gets unbelievably good at guessing correctly.
Okay, so that's the how. But what does that mean for us? How does this massive training process actually turn into tools we can use every day? Well, it creates a whole new toolbox for us to play with.
This table, honestly, it clears up so much confusion. Because when you boil it all down, these incredibly powerful tools are all working on a pretty simple principle. A language model, it's just predicting the next word in a sentence. An image generator, it's turning digital static into a picture. Audio and video tools are doing the same thing, just with sound waves and a sequence of pictures. It all comes back to patterns and predictions.
And from those basic functions, you get this whole explosion of different tools. We're talking about the large language models we chat with, the image generators making incredible art, and even the productivity tools that help organize our lives. These are the main categories you can get your hands on right now.
So let's drill down into the one most of us are using, large language models, or LLMs. When you type a question into something like ChatGPT, it isn't understanding you in a human way. It's actually just turning your question into pure math and then calculating, with unbelievable speed, the most statistically likely sequence of words to form a great answer. It's not magic, it's just math on a massive scale.
Now, image generators, they're a whole different beast. They use this really cool process called diffusion. I want you to picture a TV screen full of just static, pure digital noise. That's where the AI starts. Then, using your prompt as a guide, it slowly, piece by piece, refines that noise into the image you ask for. It's like a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble.
And here's a really cool little quirk that comes from that process. Because the AI starts from that perfectly neutral, mathematically balanced canvas of noise, the final image's lighting can sometimes feel a little off, a little flat. It doesn't have the natural pops of light and deep shadows you see in a photograph. It's a fun little giveaway you can start looking for.
Okay, so now we know what these things are and kind of how they're built, but the big question is, how do we get them to actually do what we want? Well, it all comes down to the art of the prompt. It's about how you talk to the AI.
This right here is the #1 most important rule of working with AI. Garbage in, garbage out. The AI is not a mind reader. Think of it this way. You're the director and the AI is your actor. If you give it a bad script, you're going to get a bad performance. Simple as that.
So what makes a good script? It really comes down to 3 universal rules. First, be descriptive. Give it context, tone, style, all the details. Second, make it role play. Tell it, act as an expert marine biologist. That helps it focus on the right part of all its training data. And third, set boundaries. Telling an AI what not to do can be just as powerful as telling it what to do.
And look, here's a super simple example of why this is so critical. If you just type in a cat, the AI has to guess, what kind of cat? What's it doing? But if you give it a fluffy black cat with glowing green eyes, well now, you've given it clear, direct instructions. You've taken the guesswork out of it, and you'll always get a better result.
Now, that core rule, be descriptive, it applies to everything. But what you describe changes depending on the tool. If you're talking to a language model, you want to focus on things like context, who the audience is, the tone of voice. But for an image model, it's all about the visuals, composition, lighting, specific colors and textures. All right, as we start to wrap this up, I want to boil everything we've talked about down to one single golden rule. If you remember nothing else from this explainer, remember this.
This is it. Seriously, this is the whole game. Be detailed, be descriptive, be direct. Don't be lazy with your instructions. Don't make the AI guess what you want. Give it the rich, juicy details it needs to knock it out of the park for you.
And what that really means is that you are in the driver's seat. The power isn't just in the AI, it's in your ability to communicate your idea clearly. So my advice? Just get in there and start playing around. Practice. You'll get better and better at it.
Look, at the end of the day, AI isn't some mysterious, all-powerful brain. It's a toolbox, a really, really powerful toolbox. And now, you've got the instruction manual. So the only question left is, what are you going to create? Thanks for watching.